In any case, scales will be experimented with, and communities will define themselves variously. This will cause a lack of uniformity between various communities, even among communities which border each other as defined. It will even cause confusion and conflict, or so it can be assumed. But if the alternative is centralization and loss of democratic control, we will have to go it the hard way, which is after all the grassroots way. The question when it comes to scale and association is not whether the revolution should be worldwide versus community-wide. Of course it must be global, as critics of most grassroots organizing projects constantly insist. The real question is how we are going to develop the elaborate social system necessary for ground-up, popular self-management of revolutionary struggle. Therefore, without precluding, indeed recognizing, the need for overarching, inter-networking organization of the revolution, we insist on an organic, grassroots process by which umbrella structures can come about, forming holarchies in place of hierarchies. Here we run into an unusual but very simple concept. A holarchy is a model of organizational structure which provides various levels of social strata for administrative purposes, but not various levels of authority. Abstractly speaking, it is a hierarchy without differentials in the amount of decision-making power the various levels of the pyramid have at their disposal. In the current, Republican model of federal government used by the United States, there are several levels of authority. The president, at the top of the pyramidal hierarchy, obviously has an inordinate amount of power compared to everyday citizens. And there are various levels of power in between. In a holarchy, which is still shaped as a pyramid with fewer officers manning the top ranks, as you go up model from citizen to the higher levels, decision-making power authority decreases as administrative function increases. That is, those at the top are charged with merely implementing, not choosing, the desired course on any given issue. Voters at the bottom in their neighborhoods or workplaces, for instance, make the decisions, and at some levels regional, industry-wide, etc. representatives are mandated to vote again, proportionately representative of their constituents' wishes. We will see more examples of holarchical organization when we discuss the specifics of economic and political dual power. For now, the abstract concept is important to introduce a fresh way of looking at large-scale democratic action. The most obvious reason to network local dual-power institutions and define our dual-power communities, thus forming a second power, is so they can form community-wide institutions, the second stage of internal development, the first being the formation of alternative institutions and counter-institutions. Community-wide institutions such as an alternative economy and political forums, and programs like policing and sanitation, are an enormous step, but a vital one if our communities are to become anything more than loose amalgamations of collectives and co-ops. The dual-power community must grow. It must accumulate more and more members and form more institutions to serve the expansion. The community can only grow, however, as a result of individuals and organizations willingly deciding to participate in the community. We cannot, like traditional union organizers, approach an organization and ask it to vote on whether to join us or not. We must use a far more organic approach, and participation must be based on consensus. Unenthusiastic members are valuable only as numbers, at best as means to an end, and this is simply not how to go about making revolution. Furthermore, the openness of the community must be limited. There should be a clearly defined mission, and structures which ensure the community's consistency with the mission. The mission should be explicit about its desire to change society structurally, and not just to provide a comfortable alternative to the dominant system. This will certainly limit the number of people enthusiastic about joining. Most of the uppity types now affiliating with food co-ops will shy away or even be opposed. This is where class divisions will become more obvious, and those content with leftist lip service will duck out. Those less interested in rhetoric but eager for practical change in action will take their places, hopefully several to one. This obviously implies that existing AIs and XIs which consider becoming official member institutions of the new dual power community will often undergo internal strife themselves. But this is a necessary stage in the development of revolutionary organization. Those members which would opt not to become members of the new community, or would not have their organization become part of it, are choosing either a different revolution, or no revolution at all. Unfortunately, not every alternative or counter-institution will be at the appropriate point in its development to embrace the dual power and become an integral aspect of it. Some institutions will split, certain factions opting to move on to the dual power, others maintaining the current direction. When we talk about forming dual power institutions, we don't simply mean organizing them from scratch, or radicalizing existing AIs. Especially where economic institutions are concerned, we are talking in many cases about transforming existing firms and entire industries. Labor organizations are good, general examples of XIs. Their job, when they carry it out properly, is to represent labor in opposition to management ownership. A radical union seeks not only cosmetic and quality of life gains for workers, but also more power structurally. As bosses' control of the workplace decreases, workers' power increase. And when this can be done structurally, such as through the formation of various kinds of workers' councils, a radical change has occurred. A firm undergoing such structural alteration may be well on its way to becoming a workers' cooperative, collectively managed and thus eligible for membership in the dual power community. Finally, as has been suggested, the implementation of dual power is not merely a method of arranging objective social conditions such as institutions and the political economic system in general, but also serves to facilitate the subjective, or personal, growth of the very individuals who will make the revolution. This is handled not only by economic and political institutions, but also by new conceptions and relationships of kinship and culture as well. A hybrid kind of institution, both political and economic in its nature, is required for this type of activism.